Hello all. Today we will learn about Longinus critical theories. Nothing is known about when and where Longinus lived. The famous critical treatise on the sublime is attributed to him. It is written in Greek and addressed to one Postumius Terentius, a Roman friend of the author. The ownership of the treatise is a debate since its emergence. The book is not whole and at least one-third of it is missing. It is a treatise on aesthetics and literary criticism written between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD. The central argument of the book is what constitutes sublimity in literature. Longinus was a rhetorician. He studied grammar, composition, analytical criticism with due attention to words, meter, and figures of speech. According to Scott James, Longinus is the first romantic critic because of his insistence on passion, ecstasy, transport, imagination, intensity, and exaltation. These are the romantic traits breathed by Longinus in the aesthetic criticism of the classical age. Longinus believed that the masterpieces of Greek classical literature were great due to their sublimity. By the word sublime, Longinus means elevation or loftiness. The test of sublimity is the passage which always please and please all readers contain the beauty and truth of the sublime. The effect of a lofty passage is to transport the reader out of himself. Thus, it may be very well said that the test of a great literature is its capacity to move the reader to ecstasy. A sublime or a truly lofty work pleases, excites, moves, transports, and elevates. According to him, the mark of sublimity in literature is it reaches the peak in the domain of creative art, it can transport and lift us out of ourselves, and it illumines a subject with the vividness of lightning. Both nature and art contribute to sublimity in literature. Some say that sublime is innate and cannot be acquired by teaching. Longinus identifies 5 principal sources of the sublime. They are grandeur of thought, capacity for strong emotion, appropriate use of figures, nobility of diction, dignity of composition, or a happy synthesis of all the preceding gifts. All these presuppose an indispensable preliminary gift, the command of language. First, grandeur of thought. Nobody can produce a sublime work unless his thoughts are sublime. Sublimity is the echo of a great soul. People whose whole lives are full of mean and servile ideas and habits cannot produce anything that is admirable and immortal. Thus, literature that is nurtured on whatever is noble in life elevates the readers morally and artistically. There is a decline of grandeur in Milton's Paradise Regained, which one notices in Paradise Lost. Second, capacity for strong emotion. The second source of sublime is powerful and inspired passion. He says, nothing makes so much for grandeur as true emotions in the right place, for it inspires with the wide gust of mad enthusiasm and fills them with a divine frenzy. It is for this reason he prefers the Iliad to Odyssey and Demosthenes to Cicero. Aristotle values emotions for their cathartic effect. Longinus values them for the aesthetic transport they cause, though this transport may ultimately be morally uplift. Third, appropriate use of figures. Of the artistic aids of sublimity, the figures of speech occupy the largest space. It should not be used mechanically. When it used naturally, they impart elevation to style and are themselves made more effectively. The chief figures that aim to sublimity are the rhetorical question, hyperbaton, ascendton, apostrophe, and periphrasis. Rhetorical question is either a statement in question form that suggests its own answer or a rapid succession of questions and answers. Apostrophe is a direct address to a person, thing, or abstraction. Ascendton is a figure of speech in which clauses give to a passage a quick movement and reveals a sudden rush of feelings. Hyperbaton is an intentional inversion of a word order designed for emphasis or climactic effect. Periphrasis is the roundabout way of speaking. Longinus shows the artistic use of figures of speech from the writings of orators and writers like Demosthenes. Great orators and writers make use of rhetorical questions for making their speeches more effective and impressive. It makes an immediate appeal to the emotions. Fourth, nobility of diction. According to Longinus, the use of proper and striking words enthrall the hearers. It has a moving and seductive effect upon the reader. They lend the language charm. A trivial subject should not be introduced with a grand and stately words. Among the ornaments of speech, Longinus considers metaphor and hyperbole. Aristotle had limited the number of metaphors to not more than 2 at a time, but Longinus believed that no writer has time to count the number of metaphors he is using. Fifth, dignity of composition. Proper arrangement of words is a natural source of persuasion and pleasure and lends dignity to composition. The arrangement makes the reader or the hearer share the emotions of the speaker. If the elements are separated one from another, the sublimity is scattered. The classical criteria of literary perfection underwent a change with Longinus. The classical ideal of literary perfection involved instruction, delight, and persuasion. Into this, Longinus admits the full play of the passions in the production of a masterpiece. This freedom is the very basis of romantic temper, but he does not let it entirely free. He believed that if let free, it is exposed to danger. His protest against the traditional limitation of the number of metaphors to not more than 2 at a time is in a romantic strain. In doing so, he rises above the narrow-mindedness of his predecessors to appreciate literature dispassionately. When classicists evaluated a work by its faultlessness or conformity to classical principles, Longinus says no merit in it if it does not lead to sublimity. The observance of rules is no criterion of perfection, and this is what Romanticism has to say. So Scott James rightly calls him the first romantic critic. In his remarks on the use of figures, choice of words, ornamentation of language, and artistic arrangement of the whole, and in his scientific approach, Longinus follows Aristotle. In his main thesis, the theory of transport, he rises above all his predecessors. Here he transcends all rules and pleads for a purely aesthetic appreciation of literature. Longinus sees an intimate connection between the greatness of soul and the greatness of speech. Here he appears as the disciple of Plato. Thus, Longinus is 3 characters in one, a classicist in taste, a romanticist in temper, and an idealist at heart. Longinus' treatise On the Sublime is an epoch-making treatise in the field of criticism. He was the first to expound the doctrines of Romanticism, but he turned and tempered them with the sanest in classicism. Longinus gives a new direction and guidance to criticism, and also reveals high capabilities of a great critic. Let's conclude. Thank you for watching.